So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Translation Manchester monthly seminar series. My name is Alessandro, and I'm Translational Research Manager at the University, managing Translation Manchester. Before we start, I'd just like to say a big thank you to Jim, who is disguised as Translation Manchester today in the call, for putting all these events together every month and from the beginning to end. So thank you, Jim, is really appreciated. So as you know, this series of events has been designed to feature the partners of our Translation Manchester Research Network. These include more than 60 facilities and institutions around the university and partner organizations, which are all aimed at supporting translational research. You can find all the details on the recently updated booklet, which is downloadable from our website. Jim will be posting a link in the chat as we speak. And the idea is that each month, a couple of members of the network will come to this event and present their organization and explain how and when in your translational journey they can provide support. All these events are recorded. They can be watched on our YouTube channel. Also, the link to that will be posted in the chat. So please subscribe to that if you've not done so already, because you can get all the videos from our events as soon as they're posted. We will really like for the researchers to collaborate with the TMRN partners for the translational projects. And the way to do that would be to apply for funding from Translation Manchester to do so. And today is my pleasure to announce that our funding scheme will launch very soon. We have two major funding schemes. One is called Access to Expertise and one is called Project for Translation. Access to Expertise allows researchers to apply for up to £25,000 for short projects, 6 to 9 months in duration, to access expertise which is external to their research group, for example, a TMRN partner. And this is normally covering salary for a consultant. Usually it wouldn't cover consumables. Whereas the Project for Translation is more traditional research project. You'll be funding a project for collaborating with industry or one of the partners of the network, and could cover something like a PDRA salary or consumables up to 55K. In both schemes, the very important aspect is to identify where you are in the translational pathway, where you're going and what's stopping you to reach the next step. So that we want to understand how the funding can help you unlocking that bottleneck that is stopping your translational progression. The previous successful project and all the information on how to apply can be found on our website. We will also be posting the link in the chat to the relevant page. However, to give you a little bit of overview of the timelines of this call, it will open at the beginning of July on the 5th, and expression of interest to be sent to the translation inbox just to check eligibility. And we will hold a seminar on the 14th of July, which is going to be giving you opportunity to ask questions about the schemes to me and the other members of the team. And then we'll have a first deadline, which is for academics to contact their research support managers or officers. This is because there will be some costings to do as part of the application process, and we want to give enough time to the RSM to process them with a view of submitting before the deadline, which is on the 26th of August. Then in August, we'll start with the peer review process, and hopefully we'll be able to notify the successful applicants by the end of October, with projects starting from November onwards. So this is everything from me. So I would like just to do a little bit of housekeeping before we start with the actual seminar. It would be great if you could keep yourself on mute and the camera off so we don't distract our speakers. Obviously, the speaker can have the camera on. Can I please also ask you to make use of the chat function during the talk so we can ask the question at the end to our speakers? And finally, if you could stay online until the end of the event, because we have a short feedback poll to ask you how we're doing with these events and if it's delivering what we're hoping it's delivering. So without further ado, I would like to move to our first talk of the day. It is my pleasure to introduce Sam and Asmina from the Cell and Gene Therapy Catapult. Sam and Asmina will tell us how the team at the Cell and Gene Therapy Catapult can support translational projects at the university, and perhaps with a view of collaborating with you for an HUE or P4T project.
Thank you. So hi, everyone. My name is Asmina, and I am the Business Development Executive for UK North here at the Cell and Gene Therapy Catapult. It's a pleasure to be here today and talking to you about the work that we do and how we can support you. And thank you very much to the organizers for giving us this opportunity. I will start with a very brief introduction to the Cell and Gene Therapy Catapult, and then I will hand over to my colleague Sam to talk to you specifically about our commercialization of research program. So to start with, just to say that the Cell and Gene Therapy Catapult is part of a wider network of catapults that are strategically located across the UK. You may have heard about the Catapult Medicines Discovery or the High Value Manufacturing Catapult. We are all separate independent entities, but we are working together in a collaborative way. And the Catapult network is an initiative, an investment by the UK government with the aim to create opportunities in the UK and drive sustained economic growth in the UK for the future. Specifically, the Cell and Gene Therapy Catapult is established by and funded by the Innovators UK, and we are a non-for-profit organization. Our aim is to help with the adoption, the development and exploitation of innovative technologies and therapeutics in the field of cell and gene therapy. And we do this by providing access to relevant facilities and expertise. And our ultimate vision is to make the UK a global leader in the development, delivery, and commercialization of those novel therapeutics, and where businesses can come and feel confident that they can develop and commercialize those transformative therapies. So our mission is to accelerate the commercialization of innovative research, and we do this by complementing industry and academia with unique technical facilities and expertise. We are very much innovation focused, and we collaborate very closely with academia, industry, government, NHS, and the regulatory authorities. So we can offer a series of valuable capabilities throughout the stage, throughout the journey, the development journey of a new therapy or a new technology. And we like to group our capabilities into three main themes. We have the industrialization theme, the regulatory and clinical, and the engagement theme. And within our industrialization theme, our teams can support with process development matters, analytical development, and manufacturing or supply chain. Our regulatory and clinical teams can support with regulatory matters, enable a company to have those early conversations with the MHRA and get valuable feedback from them. Our non-clinical team can support with the development of a non-clinical strategy and risk mitigation to enable a smooth transition to the clinical phase. Our clinical teams can support with the management, the design and management of clinical trials. And within our engagement theme, our teams can support with health economics and market access matters, IP and patent, and we can also enable the formation of valuable collaborations between our clients and other partners, ourselves and other partners as well. Regarding our facilities, you may think that we are very much south focused, but that's not true. So we have our laboratories at the Guy's Hospital in London. We have some offices in the area, and our laboratories where the analytical characterization, process development, viral vector, and stem cell differentiation teams are based. But we also have a large manufacturing site at Stevenage that hosts 12 segregated cleanroom modules that our collaborators can occupy, and they can bring their staff and equipment and use our facilities and our established processes to develop their therapeutics at scale. And we also have a new facility at Braintree, which is supposed to support the COVID-19 vaccine manufacturing and meant to be fully operational by the end of the year. But in the future, this is meant to become an innovation center for cell and gene therapy. And maybe it's worth saying here that we are in the process of opening new offices in Edinburgh, where I'm also based. So we are focusing on expanding in the north, and that's really exciting times for us. And before finishing with my part of introduction, I would like to mention the different models under which the cell and gene therapy Catapult operates. So we have three main models. Our core model, that means that we can choose certain projects to offer in-kind support using our core funding, core money. For example, the program for commercialization of research that Sam is going to tell you a lot more about in a short while operates under this model. We have a collaborative model, so for example, we can identify and collaboratively apply to grants together with other groups or companies or startups, early stage companies, to carry out the work in a collaborative way. And we also have our straight fee-for-service commercial model. And I will now hand over to Sam, who is going to talk to you about our commercialization of research program.
Great. Thanks very much, Mina. Nice to meet everyone, and thank you to the hosts for inviting us to give a talk. It's very welcome. Always nice to be introduced to different universities and academics and translational people, I guess. So I'm the Senior Commercialization and Research Manager at the Cell and Gene Therapy Catapult. I sit in the Business Development Department with Mina, but I lead our Commercialization and Research Program. I'll delve into that, but as a kind of headline, what COR is designed to do is work with academic groups primarily to develop investable opportunities for venture capital and other private investors. So really it's trying to boost the number of spin-outs in the UK in the advanced therapy space. So this slide kind of talks to that really and gives a little bit more detail. So really we're trying to increase the visibility of academic groups doing novel research to the investor base in the UK. So we have strong links with academic groups and strong links with venture capital groups who are comfortable and often invest in advanced therapies, and we can bring them together. So we collaborate with academic groups or sometimes very new companies to develop investable opportunities. So we're focusing on innovative science. That's not necessarily a difficult thing when you're speaking to academics. And these projects also have to have commercial potential as well. Sometimes that's not always realized, but we can help to kind of tease that out and identify really where is the commercial opportunity in these projects. So commercialization of research as a program, commercialization of research in the cell and gene therapy catapult did exist prior to 2019, but we did it on a very kind of ad hoc and passive basis where we had, projects come to us if they were appropriate, and if they were worthwhile, then we would potentially help to work with that group to develop investable opportunity. But as I say, it's a very passive kind of ad hoc thing. We only did it when interesting projects came to us. But we did have some success, nevertheless, and so there's an opportunity to kind of build on that, develop a structure and expand that offering. So from 2019 onwards, I would say, we've really started to build structure around this program. So we now have active identification of projects, primarily through myself, but for other members of our business development group as well. We have a dedicated commercialization and research team. So we operate in a matrix style structure where we have individuals from our non-clinical group, individuals from our industrialization team, so experts in process development of AAV and stem cells. And then we have regulatory experts as well. So we operate as a core group to provide kind of diversity and expertise to academics instead of just focusing on one individual area. So we feel like that kind of benefit provides the most benefit. We have a structured due diligence process. So once we've identified a group or we've had an interaction, we can do a full due diligence process. To an extent, a little bit like some venture capital groups do. It's good to go through that process before going through venture capital because we ask some of the same questions, so academics know what's coming. And we have a dedicated offering as well as what we can provide these academic groups. And as a result, we've managed to build a portfolio of collaborators over the last kind of 2 years to 18 months. Next slide, please, Mina. Okay, so when we were building the commercialization of research program, we had to think about what is an investable opportunity? Because if we don't have a good understanding of what an investable opportunity is, we can't really help academic groups to develop more robust ones or more valuable ones. So we came up with this list here of, I can't remember how many years is in there now, maybe around 10 or so areas that we feel are areas that venture capital ask questions when you're kind of speaking to them, and areas that they're interested in and they need to have either data on, or at least for you to provide a kind of robust answer. And so these areas often, a great differential idea and in convincing in vitro mechanism of action. Often academic groups have that as a very basic kind of level of data, but these other points here, they sometimes do have a few of these turn green or none at all. And so we feel like we can help work with academic groups to turn these traffic lights, so these orange traffic lights, into green. So if you go to the next point, please, Mina. Next slide, thank you. So when we're working with academic groups to turn these traffic lights from a kind of yellow into a green, we've chosen them really because, as I say, they're the points that the venture capital tend to focus on, and also the areas that we feel like as a Catapult we have the capability of actually providing impact on. So these first three that were orange are now turned green. So relevant in vivo models, high yielding and scalable manufacturing process, and preclinical safety and pharmacological data. So through our non-clinical group and industrialization teams, we can collaborate or work with academic groups to either generate and help generate data together to turn these lights green, or at least provide input and some credible input that can be communicated to venture capital around your strategy of how you would go about turning these lights green, which can go quite far as well. The next one, which is an experienced entrepreneurial team, if you just, this one's an active one, Mina, so you just got to press it, there you go, we don't necessarily, it's very difficult to impact the experience of an entrepreneurial team, and we're not there to provide entrepreneurial insight as such. We're more there to provide technical input and insights, but we can link academics to external consultants to come in and maybe act as pseudo CEOs or take positions like that if that support is really necessary. These final four points, turning those from yellow to green, these are slightly later stage questions and later stage issues that are more around the clinical aspect of a product or a company's life cycle. So your medicinal product, having a vision of that, proof of concept, design for clinical studies, your market access, positioning, and then freedom to operate. We have the teams internally to provide capability to answer some of those questions or provide support and guidance and strategy around how you answer those questions, but that doesn't necessarily always form part of the core support for commercialization of research. So the core team and the commercialization of research, if you just press one more, Mina, is forms, as I said, from our non-clinical group and industrialization teams, including myself and others. And that's because these early questions here and these early issues are what we find are the most pertinent for venture capital and where they really focus a lot of their due diligence and questioning. So we really focus our support on these earlier areas. Next slide, please. The commercialization of research program, as I said, we have these kind of three areas that we flow through. We don't always go from 1 to 2 to 3. Sometimes we jump in at 3 or jump in at 2. But as a kind of vanilla scenario, I guess we would bring in an academic group and do an investable opportunity clinic. So this is a day or a half day, depending on the situation, where we invite the PI and maybe a senior postdoc who's actually done the work, and we ask them to present their published work, their published research, their unpublished research, what their plans are, development plans are from a scientific point of view, development plans from a commercial point of view. We talk about their IP and any regulatory issues they have, and really just get them to give us all the nuts and bolts and dig into really their project quite a deep level. And from our side, we have our commercialization research team, so that includes a non-clinical expert, an industrialization expert, whether it's an AAV or stem cell based on the project, bring in a regulatory person as well. And essentially we spend a day interrogating the academics and asking as many questions as we can to understand the project inside out. And at the end of that day, we'll provide a report that the academic can take away and utilize how they want. So we don't charge anything for that. That's a free day that we put on. And sometimes the academics feel that's quite beneficial because they can incorporate some of that feedback, either the verbal or written feedback, into business plans or into grant applications and so on. But the next stage on from that is to then go through a full due diligence process. I won't go into that, but it can take a little while to really get into the nuts and bolts of the scientific and commercial aspects of a project. But the output of that is really to develop a formal collaboration. So we can do some desk-based work packages or lab-based work packages, depending on the project. So we could provide a non-clinical strategy. How do you generate data to show, you've demonstrated toxicology and safety and biodistribution in your animal model, or we can do some lab-based work packages. So how do you scale an AAV gene therapy, or how do you demonstrate kind of differentiation at scale of your stem cell therapy? But always we focus on getting the amber lights to green. That work that we do with the academic group is in kind. So all the work under commercialization research is in kind funded by the Cell and Gene Therapy Catapult. And in return from that, we don't ask for any commercial or financial royalties or revenues or anything. Because we're funded by Innovate UK, this is part of our remit to boost the industry. So we provide this as an in-kind resource. And then finally, we do a lot of engagement with venture capital, bringing those collaborators through once they're ready to speak to venture capital groups using the network that we have there, and we get them ready, and we kind of do dry run pitches and so on to get them ready for those interactions. Next slide, please, Mina. Yeah, I think this is almost the last one. So this is just a list of some of the universities that we're already working with, and we have worked with Manchester on a couple of projects already. I don't think that's an exhaustive list. And a couple of examples here. So we worked with Bristol, an academic at the University of Bristol, to develop his AAV gene therapy in the kidney. So we did a non-clinical strategy for him, and we also did some characterization of his product some analytical characterization of his product. And that data was kind of fed in, and he managed to attract £45 million worth of investment for a spin out called PureSpring. So that was a really good success story. Another one is Therapeutics, which is a stem cell therapy for the ear. And this was an academic at the University of Sheffield who provided some healthcare economic and market access support for, and that fed into his proposal, and he managed to raise £10 million worth of investment to form Therapeutics. So yeah, we've had a couple of good success stories recently. Final slide, please, Mina. So this final slide here is not necessarily dedicated to commercialization of research, but this is kind of on behalf of Mina and myself, and just to show you some of the grant opportunities that are available at the moment in the UK. I know, obviously, at the top, Alessandro talked about the 2 grant opportunities that's on offer there, and I think that can complement what's on this list. The Cell and Gene Therapy Catapult, as I said, we do commercialization of research, which is in-kind funded support. We do commercial support. Commercial support isn't necessarily really appropriate for academics, but we also collaborate on grants. So we can do all the types of things listed at the Cell and Gene Therapy Catapult, but via grants with academics. So if you are interested in accessing support from the Cell and Gene Therapy Catapult, then we're more than happy to talk to you about these grants and the type of projects that we could collaborate on. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sam and Mina. I think hopefully this has given an overview to the people in the call today on how they can approach and how and what for they can approach you to collaborate. If anyone has any question for Sam and Mina, please put them in the chat. I do have a couple of questions, but perhaps we'll leave them until the end so that we can ask them together to the MDC representative. So perhaps we can go and and start with the second talk of the day. It's my pleasure to welcome Martin from the Medicine Discovery Catapult, who similarly to Sam and Mina will tell us about how the Medicine Discovery Catapult can provide support for translational projects. And thank you, Martin, for coming today and share your expertise. The floor is yours.
So thank you for the opportunity, and nice to meet you all virtually. So yeah, just got a small set of slides just to introduce you to the work that we do at the Medicines Discovery Catapult. We're based at the old AstraZeneca site, Alderley Park, just down the road from you all. And I wanted to give you a brief overview of some of the work we're doing. You'll see some parallels to what you've just heard from Asmina and Sam, but also hopefully some different aspects I can talk you through as well. Okay, so in terms of introducing the Medicines Discovery Catapult, we're actually the newest of the Catapult group. So we've been running for around 4 or 5 years, depending on when you call day one. The labs have been open for about 4 years now. And as Amina said, we're part of a network of catapults. We're a not-for-profit organisation funded by the government and our community. And because we got this financial independence, we can take risks and pursue high-risk science, which is our key element of what we do, I believe. We work with a whole range of different types of collaborators. This is by no means an inclusive slide. We work with many SMEs and startups, but also work with academic groups. We work with large pharma on occasion, and we also work with technology providers, vendors, etc. So quite a diverse set of collaborators. But I think the one thing that brings this all together is a shared desire to improve medicines discovery by applying innovative science. Just got a couple of slides now from a larger deck, which is where we talk about who we help and how we can help different target audiences. And I've just pulled out a couple of slides which I think are particularly relevant for today. So in terms of how we can work with academics, sorry, I'll just move the picture slightly so I can read it. So we can provide impartial and biased medicines discovery project reviews, assessing the impact and potential of different innovations and products in the university. We can provide drug discovery insight and commercial know-how on the drug discovery process. We can provide insights into technology providers and identify partnering opportunities. We can deliver complementary lab work. I think we recognise there's some really high-end technologies and capabilities in the academic sector, but on occasion we can deliver complementary science with technologies that aren't available within the university. We can apply informatics to optimise data that's generated and identify opportunities. And finally, as Sam outlined, we can help to identify grant and partnering opportunities. The other slide I thought is worth pulling out today is around how we can work with technology innovators. So these can be innovators that are developing new technologies within a university or in a technology-based startup. And what we feel with this group of collaborators is that we can provide drug discovery expertise to actually test those innovations with real-world biology and therapeutic examples. So that could be use of cells and tissues in a real-world context, or testing of compounds, just to bring that real-world testing to light. We can help to drive adoption of new approaches and technologies across the industry. So this could be working with you together on use cases and application notes. And often we can identify novel applications for a technology. We can look across the sector and think about slightly different ways that a technology could potentially be used. And then we can benchmark your technology against other currently available gold standard technologies. In terms of how we help, just wanted to use this slide to introduce some of the different themes in terms of the way we work within Medicines Discovery Catapult. We have a large discovery organisation, which comprises Discovery Sciences, which is our lab groups. I'll go on to a little bit more on that in a minute. We have a theme around access to clinical samples. So we don't run our own biobank at the moment, but we've got relationships with different groups where we can help connect people to get the right samples for their research. And we have a virtual R&D organisation, which offers project evaluation, project management, and we've also got a CRO network, so we can help people to build a delivery plan for their project and help them to execute that delivery plan, either through MDC labs or through connecting with CROs. We have a large informatics organization which works on data science, artificial intelligence and machine learning, also bioinformatics and cheminformatics. And we have a syndicates theme, which is based around working with medical research charities and really trying to put the patient voice at the heart of the work that's being done, so we can connect together different players around that medical research charity to try and drive an area forward. And I'll give you an example of that later. So going into the discovery department, which is where I work, I lead the in vitro lab activities within Medicines Discovery Catapult. I guess the key thing we're trying to achieve here is making a positive impact on the success of Innovators drug discovery in the UK. And the way we do this really is trying to generate decision-making scientific data and using a combination of high-end specialist equipment, specialist scientific know-how, but also drug discovery experience. We've got quite a large number of people who've worked in the pharma industry or in biotech, and we can bring that to bear on people's projects as well. In terms of what we do, we spent a lot of time really trying to talk to people and get under the skin of the project, understand what are the key problems, what are the key challenges, and trying to develop experimental solutions to help address those challenges. We develop a strategy, and then scientifically we've chosen to focus on 4 different areas. The first one is around preclinical cell models, trying to help identify, analyze, and advance better human preclinical cell models to test compounds and mechanisms in. Second one is around target and pathway engagement, helping collaborators to build that link between their lead molecule, the target protein, and downstream biology. Third one is around biomarkers, trying to help partners develop a biomarker strategy and apply our technologies to identify or validated biomarkers. And then the fourth one is around drug delivery and biodistribution through a combination of preclinical imaging, looking at whole body distribution studies, and then ex vivo tissue analysis to look in depth at where compounds are biodistributing in the body. To go into a little bit more detail, effectively what we're doing is operating between a simple 2-dimensional cell assay right through to analysis of clinical samples. And what we're looking to do is to help partners build the link between their compound, the target protein, and biological effect in a translatable system, ultimately to reduce project attrition. But we're also increasingly focused on back translation, taking clinical samples, really analysing these samples in depth and trying to translate that information back into the cascade. I've put a bunch of technologies that we focus on at the bottom, but in brief, what we've chosen to do is to focus in a number of areas. We've invested quite heavily in mass spectrometry, in spatial tissue analysis, in nanostring, and in microscopy, to name but 4. One thing I wanted to mention briefly is something we're very excited about, in that we recently were successful in gaining investment to build a new translational facility on site at Alderley Park. And this is going to be a lab or a set of labs where we can really drive research into infectious disease. So we're going to have level 3 biosafety facilities as well as level 2 labs, and we're going to be able to build access to strains of human tissue and cell models of relevance for people doing infectious disease research. And we've just brought in a head of infection biology. He's going to be joining us in a few weeks to drive this. So this will be a lab where we'll be open to either commercial or grant-funded work to help people drive forward their infectious disease research. I just wanted to finish off with 3 case studies just to paint a picture of the type of work that we've done. The first one is relevant to our discovery organisation, and this is work we've done with a spin-out at the University of Leeds called Lunac Therapeutics. This was a group that was doing drug discovery initially from an academic setting at Leeds, looking to develop novel anticoagulants. And in 2019, we joined forces with this group for a biomedical catalyst grant. We were very successful with that grant, what a large award. And hopefully part of that success was the fact we could get our expert grant writer involved in helping to shape that grant. But then the element that we wrote into the grant for MDC was a little bit of a combination of industrial insert and project management and project planning, helping to connect into that CRO landscape I mentioned before, but also practically in the lab, preclinical imaging using novel PET tracers to look at mechanism in rodents. In 2020, I think in part due to this grant award, there was a large venture capital investment in the company. data looked really promising, and then last year LUNAC won Startup of the Year award at the BioNow Awards, and also received additional investment. So we're really proud of this type of example where we can help work with a company very early on and kind of help them on that early journey in whatever way we can. Second very different example I wanted to mention was from our informatics team. As I mentioned, we do a lot of work with data science and machine learning. And this is a piece of work we did with the MS Society. And what the MS Society wanted to do was to understand what the opportunity is for repurposing drugs, multiple sclerosis clinical trials. So what we did here is we started off with a list of compounds which had already been taken into trials for multiple sclerosis. We then used our algorithms and our databases to actually map back to the protein, the target proteins associated with these drugs. And then we look for other compounds which interacted with those target proteins. What we're able to do then is build a long list of drugs that could be considered as repositioning opportunities. And we pulled all this data together in an app or a desktop application that could easily be used to manipulate the data and look through the data. What was quite gratifying here is we were able to identify most of the candidates on the MS Society's initial list, but also identify a similar number of new candidate molecules which could be considered. And then the final example I wanted to mention was from our syndicates area, where we've built a psychiatry consortium to try and bring forward new targets for psychiatry drug discovery. So the way this syndicate works is it's again centered around medical research charities, but we've brought in a number of different pharma companies here, each of which have agreed to put funding into this consortium. And then what we do is calls for proposal from academics about new target opportunities, new target ideas in this space. It goes through a triage process, but then if these opportunities are taken forward, there's then the opportunity to fund research in the academic lab, in CROs, or in a combination of the two labs to build that validation package. And then there's an arrangement with the pharma companies where there's an opportunity to have a discussion at a later date about taking these things forward for commercialization. So that's just 3 examples I wanted to share quickly. So finally, just to wrap things up, hopefully I've illustrated there are a number of different ways that we can work with academics as they move their innovation forward. We like to engage very early through grant funding or other mechanisms, and then we can work with companies right through their journey, really, as they go through different funding rounds. We're very focused on trying to explore people's problems and find solutions, as opposed to have a tailored set of assays that we run routinely. And then, as I said, there's a number of different ways we can work. Very much, as Asmina and Sam said, we can do collaborative work from our core resource, we can do grant-funded work, we can do commercial fee-for-service work, and we tend to just sit down with partners and really work through what's the best arrangement for the different experimental options. So I've put my colleague, Sander Hensing's contact details on the bottom. He leads our business development group, and he or I would be very happy to hear from you if you have any questions, either immediately now or after the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martin. That was great overview of the work undertaken at MDC. I'd like to open the floor for questions now. If anyone in the call has a question, please put it in the chat or raise your hand. We'll be able to ask the expertise of our guests today to answer those questions. Before we get to that, well, actually, I do have a question myself. Martin, you mentioned the contact details to approach MDC to seek for that type of collaboration. I might have missed that, but is there a contact for the cell and gene therapy Catapult? What's the best way to approach you?
To contact either myself or Mina. I'm not sure is it on the slides. If it's not, we can add some contact details onto the slides.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you. And and then a question for both them. At what stage do you think the academics should contact you? I'm not talking about stage, obviously you mentioned early stages to work for applications together, but what stage of the translational pathway do they need to approach you? Do they need to be ready to spin out? Are you happy to talk to them earlier on in the translational pathway? What TRL levels do you think you'd be more interested to hear about? question for any of the speaker, really.
Well, I mean, we had that kind of traffic light system. So ideally, the group have at least some basic kind of in vitro data, and are looking to generate some in vivo data. And then the stronger the in vivo data, obviously, the better it is. But really, it's not. We don't try and put as much of a kind of TRL badge on things. At least I personally don't necessarily like that kind of remit. I like to just kind of more have an open conversation with an academic group about the research that they're doing, and kind of explore opportunities. I don't, academics are doing research, so they tend to have some data anyway. So I think it's good to just kind of understand about what that data is and where they're going, and more about what their plans are going forward. And then we can see if there's opportunities to support.
That's great. Thanks for the answer. Because an academic might feel like the technology is not ready to talk to you, but it's good that you speak to people at any stage of translation. Martin, is that the same case for MDC or?
Yes, to some extent. So I'd say probably two different aspects. I think if an academic's kind of working towards an idea with a view to a spin out, then I think we're very interested in having those conversations. We've tended to do that in a quite structured way. So we've engaged with different universities around their confidence in concept funding stream, as an example, where we can actually look at a portfolio of opportunities and see where we can provide advice and insight. So I think that's kind of more of a structured way we've done on several occasions. I think the other thing we were doing in a much more ad hoc basis, if there's an opportunity within our kind of core scientific focus areas to actually collaborate directly, potentially on a new technology or an application that could fit directly into the work we're doing, I think we're always open to those conversations as well. So I'd say they're almost slightly different in terms of if it's advice about that startup route, we've tended to do that in a more structured way. If it's more of a scientist to scientist, then we've done quite a lot of those ad hoc examples as well.
Great, thank you. That's great. If anyone has a question, please put that in the chat. I do actually have another question for you, Martin. You mentioned access to clinical sample services. Is that also open to academics, or is mostly for SMEs? And does that come at a cost, or is one of the in-kind services?
Unfortunately, at a cost. I believe it's completely open to academics as much as to SMEs as well. What we do there is, at the moment, we don't have a biobank ourselves. It's really around, we've got a very good network and very good connections, so we can help with the sourcing, and we can also help potentially with the paperwork, depending on what it is as well. So that's where we're at the moment, but we do charge for it.
So you charge to look at the request and then source it within your network as well?
Yes, yes. So I can't remember exactly what the charging structure is. I'll probably need to come back to you on the details of that.
Okay, no problem. But should we have any academic that is in need of some tissues that are not available in the biobanks that are in our network, then perhaps they can come to you and apply to Translation Manchester funding to gain that tissue. Is that a route that is?
Yes, yeah, I think that's a really nice fit. Yeah, absolutely.
Good, thank you. And similarly, I think you both mentioned the grant writing service. Is that in kind, or is that with a fee as well?
For the Cell and Gene Therapy Catapult, we don't have dedicated grant writers, but all our kind of team, I guess, have written many grant proposals. So they just have experience in that way. But when we're writing grants together, we don't charge, at all. It's a case of just building that proposal together and then submitting it. So there's no charge to that.
Yeah, very much the same as Sam for us. We don't offer grant writing support as a service, but it's very much, if we're a partner on the grant, we would absolutely be embedded in it, and it would tend to be a team effort between my colleagues who are specialists in the grant writing and the external partner. So.
Fantastic. So again, the way I see this happening is if an academic from this side has a project in mind and they want to collaborate with you for external funding, then the pan priming evidence, or even writing that grant together and gathering some preliminary evidence could be the subject of P4T or HUE award. So that was good to mention. So if we don't have any other question, I would like to thank the speakers from today, and we will not have a seminar series next month, but we'll be talking about HUE and P4T. So we just need an extra minute of your time, actually. If Jim can launch the poll, we just want to know from the audience if you are finding these events useful, because it's important for us to shape the future of the events. So with that go, I would still like to thank Sam, Mina, and Martin for coming to present here today. Hopefully this will be the beginning of some collaborations. The videos will be shared on our network, so you might get queries from people that didn't attend today but are interested in collaborating with you. So thank you everybody for attending, and I'll see you next month.